Okay. We're doing a round two of this video because there were some issues with my first one. But I think it's good because now that I talked about it a little bit, I feel like my head is clearer. Also, I'm eating, so. And I look a mess. Because it's okay to be a mess every now and then. There's no reason we should strive for perfection. Unless you want to, I guess, if that's like your thing. For me, I welcome imperfection. I welcome flaws. And I think more people should too. But the purpose of this video was to talk about, I guess, a connection that I had that never really came to fruition. Because I'm honestly kind of tired. Like I'm ready to move forward. But I think after having the first conversation that didn't record, unfortunately, I feel like I am now that I like let it all out. But I feel like this is something I should still share with regardless. So that's what I'm gonna do. But essentially, about a year back, I met a guy, and I never met him in person, so that's something that I need to share. But we did have calls and video calls online. So I know what he looked like, he knew what I looked like, I knew what he sounded like, he knew what I sounded like, and so forth. But I met him through mutual friends, and we would play video games together, mainly League of Legends. I know some of you are gonna get on my case for that, but if you're not familiar about that game, it's known for its toxicity. Many people who play it would basically try to stray you away. If they were good, if they cared about your well being, I think they would mostly argue, don't play this game. I digress. So we would play together, and initially it was very surface level. Just two people playing games, and this and that. But over time, we started having meaningful conversations. I opened up about some things that I was emotional about during at that time. He also opened up about some things, and we got to know each other like on a very meaningful level, in my opinion. And as time went by, I'll be honest, things escalated a little quick. It got spicy between us. So naturally, I developed feelings for him. Not only was I bonding deeply with someone, but there was also that sexual attraction. So I liked him a lot. And based on our interactions, he seemed to really like me as well. So that is why it was really confusing the way that he was outside these interactions. So during our hangouts, in my opinion, it was very evident that he was extremely into me. And he even shared that it was the first time that he had emotionally bonded with someone before the physical aspect came into the picture. Because normally he would be physical with someone and then the emotional would come after. But this was a first where emotional came and then physical. And yeah, it was really sweet. So I felt what we had was promising. But he was but he was very distant outside. I'm talking he would go days, almost a week without saying anything until like our next hangout. And I never really brought it up initially because I thought that the dynamic would change. I was under the impression like this guy really likes me and I really like him and he's saying all these really sweet things to me, and I've been with people and I know what someone liking me looks like. And that's what I got from him. So, I'm like, okay, like things are really gonna take a turn for the better. And then a week, 2, 3, 4 goes by and nothing. The dynamic changed. Actually, I feel like the dynamic got worse because at least initially he would like respond whenever I would reach out to him, but after that like he would take longer. The silent days were taking longer. Like it kept getting worse, and by this time my anxious attachment was like off the charts. Like it was flaring. I was triggered. I was very, very triggered. And I remember I had woken up one night. I don't know exactly what I dreamt about, but it was basically about the situation and how it was making me feel. So it just amplified those emotions just a lot. And I woke up and I just immediately started to cry. My heart was beating like crazy. I was shaking. And I just remember thinking like, no, I have to say something. I have to bring this up because this is affecting me really badly. And so I messaged him. I told him like, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. My anxious attachment is flaring up. Now, this is the part where I wish I had went at it at a different angle. But I understand that I didn't have the knowledge I have now back then. So what I ended up doing was basically, I guess, shrinking myself. I said like, hey, I feel like you're not in a place to deal with it. And I wish I had said something like, hey, I'm feeling XYZ and this is what I need from you if you're interested in like pursuing something with me. But it did come from a very insecure standpoint. So what I had told him was like, if I feel like you don't have the capacity, basically. And that's, I think it took him like a day or two to respond. And he had said that he felt like he got attached more than he expected and that he was shutting down. And that he wanted to take a few steps back if I was fine with it. And obviously I wasn't fine with it because I was just, if you have anxious attachment, then you know that once you're triggered, it's like, it's not easily turned off. And unfortunately, him saying these things, I think just, because I was already so sensitive, I perceived it as rejection in a way, and I asked for space because I wanted to calm down and recollect myself, because I knew that if I were to accept those terms, that I would be doing it because I wanted to get closer to him, and I would do anything to get closer to him. And again, that's my anxious attachment trying to close that gap between us, but at the end it would have been detrimental to me, so I asked for space. Now, excuse me, the unfortunate part is that at some point this space turned from grounding myself and working on myself to spiraling. And I got in my head and I convinced myself that it was all an act. Did he ever care for me? Instead of like asking directly. And that went on for about a month until I eventually reached out and I was like, hey, I'm sorry for the space. I came clean. I'm like, it seems like I tend to get in my head. It's still something that's really difficult. And I had asked that if you feel yourself shutting down, like, could you just give me a heads up? Just let me know. I think that'll help me stay grounded while respecting your need for space. And I wanted to be friends with him, so I told him, like, hey, like, I think it'd be nice to just kind of have a clear slate, start over. I would like to be friends. And at the time, I was going to New York, and he was going to visit me. I was going to New York for work, and he was going to visit me. So I did happen to mention that. I wish I didn't again, but I think that was also like part of the anxious attachment, wanting to get closer. So I threw that in there. But there was no response from him. A few months go by. Nothing. It was just 3 months of silence, and it was so unfair to me because I felt like a part of me was still holding on to him, Like, I had hope, and I think just eventually I was like, no, like, I'm not gonna get closure from this guy, so I'm gonna give it to myself. And so I messaged him after 3 months of silence. I was like, hey, I hope you're doing well. I'm assuming that you don't want to be friends or can't bring yourself to, like, talk to me or whatever. And I shared what I could have done better. I said, like, hey, like, I wish I had communicated, like, how I was feeling earlier. I think if I had done that, it would have been from, like, a grounded standpoint as opposed to, like, a triggered and insecure. And I basically, like, listed what I could have done better and how I could have handled certain things, how I could have responded, XYZ, right? But I also called him out. And I told him, I think that it was in poor taste that you did not respond. I would have been okay if you told me that you needed space or that you didn't have the capacity for any of this. And I also told him, for someone who mentioned how important communication was, there wasn't much of that. Because during our conversations, he had mentioned that as long as we keep communicating to one another, that's good. So, yeah, he didn't do that. And it just really hurt because I genuinely thought this was the guy for me. I thought that I have found someone that was on the same page. And, I'm far from perfect. I have my flaws. I know that I need, like I've always struggled with sharing my feelings. But I think experiencing the situation with him made me realize, like, I have to advocate for myself. I have to share what I'm feeling. I have to share my feelings, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's scary, even if it might lead to disappointment. I have to share my thoughts. I have to share my feelings. And, and that's what I did with him. But he wasn't the right person to do it with. Because of, well, the outcome, obviously. If he was the person, he would have, communicated. But he didn't. And I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's just going through his own issues, his own struggles. But again, as I told him, I think the least he could have done was just said that he needed time for himself. He needed space. Just say something. And I thanked him for the experience because I did learn, and that's just the type of person I am. I'm very thankful, even though it's hurtful. And my God, was it hurtful. I was heartbroken. Very heartbroken. I am very sensitive, and I feel my emotions deeply. And it takes me a really long time to fully process my emotions and then move forward. It's almost been a year since him and I stopped talking, and it feels like my heart and my mind are like in opposites. Like my heart wants so badly for him to just like realize, like, oh my God, this is the girl of my dreams. What have I done? Come back and apologize and want to make things work. But that's just not the reality. I'm a hopeless romantic, so there's that too. But my mind is like, girl, look at how he handled the situation. Look at what he did. If he wanted to, he would. Even if a person is struggling, they have their own issues, they'll be willing to work through them if they really want to. I don't know what he's going through. I don't know. Maybe, honestly, like, it's quite possible that to him it was just fun, that he didn't really like me. He just wanted something to kill time. That's a possibility. But I don't know. And I probably will never know. And that's just something that I have to accept. And I have accepted. Logically, that is. My heart, on the other hand, she's got a mind of her own. But yeah. I think I've grown a lot, and I think this experience with him has opened my eyes to a lot of things. It has made me confront things that I've been avoiding, and moving forward, I know that I'm better equipped when I am talking to someone and there is a romantic spark. And if you are a sensitive girly like me, I just want you to know that I understand how difficult heartbreaks are. and that it takes us a really long time to feel our emotions, and that is okay. I've even now and then, like, I will think about the situation and I will cry, and that's fine. That is me still mourning. That is still me processing, and that is still me, like, accepting what could happen is not the reality, and that I must move forward. I know that there is someone for me out there, and even if it turns out there isn't, I would rather be alone than to settle. Yeah. I hope this conversation was interesting, or me talking about this was interesting, and I hope that it helps someone out there that might be going through the same thing. Almost a year now, I feel like I mostly moved forward, but I still have moments where I think about it and get sad. And that's fine, because I know one day I will have moved forward completely and not look back. Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna go eat my food now. Goodbye.